Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wake Up with Patty Catter. I am your host, Patty Catter. Today, I have with me Brian Paul on the show. I am so excited to have Brian on the show today because he is super energetic. You should see his social media. He's always like flexing his guns on there, or yeah, talking about karaoke. Um, so Brian served in the National Guard, and he was. You were deployed after the Oklahoma bombing to that site? Let me make sure I get that right.
I joined the 45th Infantry just shortly before, and so I was deployed to the Oklahoma City bombing for about 2 weeks, and that was my sole deployment, which comes in later in my story.
Yeah.
With addiction and post-traumatic stress.
Which we're going to go there shortly. Um, right now, I'd like you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from. We can all kind of assume now where you're from. Maybe a little bit about your childhood. What do you have for us today, Brian?
Absolutely. So I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Wow.
And
I was wrong.
Right. Well, my family moved to Oklahoma, the Oklahoma City area, when I was 2 years old, and but I grew up out in Mustang, Oklahoma, out just west of town, out in the country. So, riding three-wheelers and horses and fishing about every day, and playing football and basketball, and so that was kind of my upbringing. And youth group, church was a big part of my upbringing as well.
So, good old boy is what I'm picturing, right? Kind of country.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, why did you join the National Guard?
Myself and my buddy, his name's Khalid Hussein, we were bored one summer, and we're like, what do you want to do? And we were like, let's go blow some stuff up. We were originally going to join the Marines.
That's a good place to blow stuff up.
Yeah, right. I mean, so we ended up joining the National Guard together. He is now, we joined up as Private E2, and he was an E3. And so we had the little mosquito, more on our collar. He's now a lieutenant colonel and commands the 180th Cav here in Oklahoma.
Wow.
So he went a little further than I did.
But. Wow. That's so interesting. 1 second. I have somebody coming in my house. I'm going to pause this. So we did have a little tiny interruption, everybody. So we're going to hop back here on track. And so you were talking about your friend that you were in the military with, and he is a lieutenant colonel now?
He is, yeah. He made it to lieutenant colonel. My last job assignment was rifle platoon leader, so I was in command of about 30 guys, or he's in command of a whole regiment. So, so he went a little further.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I guess so. So, you were telling our listeners at the very beginning about how you were at the Oklahoma City bombing, and I think most of us watched it unfold on TV. You know, those of us who can remember it. And what was it like when you found out that you were going to be going on location there?
Well, I found out on that morning. My phone was ringing off the hook, and I had been out late with the guys the night before, and so of course I'm not answering it. So his commander calling saying, "Hey, you need to report to the armory," and our armory was actually about 3 miles from where I lived at Oklahoma City University, and the bombing site was like 3 miles just south of there. So it was all right there, and
wow,
the blast actually woke me up and really woke the city up. And so we were down there for 2 weeks and mainly doing security detail and putting up tents for the FBI. And but spending time there on ground zero was a different experience, to say the least, as you can imagine.
About how old were you during that time?
I was about 19.
So young.
Maybe 20. Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I have a daughter who is almost 20, and can't imagine if she had to go through something like that. Of course, when you're that age, you think you know everything. So were you, I mean, in the military, I know sometimes the guys get pumped about going places like that, but what was your feeling, your personal feeling? Were you kind of apprehensive about going, not knowing for sure why there was a bombing, or what was your feeling at that time?
It was very surreal because we were actually training up for somewhere like North Korea, and we were in Enhanced Readiness Brigade, and many of us were airborne air assault and would deploy with, say, like the 82nd Airborne or the 101st or somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But being deployed actually just a few miles away is something none of us would ever expect. But that being said, I think all of us were ready to go and do our jobs and do what we were trained to do.
Mm-hmm. So, on your social media, you talk a lot about post traumatic stress. And I'm wondering, could you share a little bit about what you experienced on how you ended up having post traumatic stress?
Sure, yeah. So after I completed my military obligation, I moved to Kansas City. I became a freight dock supervisor for what was then Roadway Express for about 4 years. We got bought out by Yellow Freight, so I lost my job there and wanted to rediscover my purpose. So I decided to become a firefighter, and so I first became an EMT, and then a firefighter. Volunteered for 2 years. Worked as a full-time EMT throughout, and then finally got on full-time with Central Jackson County Fire.
Mhm.
Very, very busy fire district. We answered about 7,000 calls a year
Wow.
out of 5 stations. I was typically at the two busiest stations, so it was just go, go, go.
Hmm.
And so I began self-medicating through that stress with alcohol, much like a lot of people,
Hmm.
even people that aren't even in a service line of work,
Hmm.
um, to the point where I was full-blown addicted to alcohol, where I just could not stop drinking.
Hmm.
So I subsequently got divorced and lost my job. Had to Part of that was had to go on light duty due to a back injury, and so I was beginning to kind of lose who I was
Hmm.
and that purpose and that identity. So I ended up going homeless and living in my 2006 Jeep Liberty, and my addiction to alcohol got so bad that my bone marrow was actually not producing red blood cells like it should. So I was bruising all over my body, and it was just a terrible mess.
Hmm.
Um, so my turning point was where my mother actually finally convinced me to go to a 90-day treatment program
Hmm.
in Tennessee called English Mountain Recovery, where they had a 12-step program, talk therapy, and also equine therapy,
Hmm.
which is what I've put a lot of focus into. We're actually building an equine assisted therapy network here in central Oklahoma, which is actually coming along. So
Hmm.
it's a
Yeah,
big project, but
I've been following your social media. You all have to follow Brian on social media because his posts are really interesting. And I love it when you post pictures with the horse. Like,
yeah.
it's amazing to me. So I grew up with horses, but I really didn't go around them much because I'm very allergic to them. But um, when I did, it was fun. My eyes would swell up, and I'd still have so much fun. But I uh, I was very involved with having horses around at least. So when I see your pictures of horses, it brings back good memories. My dad was on the mounted unit at the sheriff's department, so um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was really neat.
So,
Yeah, so I hear and I've heard my whole life that horses just have this magical connection with humans, and they can kind of feel what humans are feeling. What do you think about that?
well, you're right. So we're using the evolution of the horse being prey animals and having a very highly sensitive alertness to what would normally prey on them. And most people don't think of horses as prey animals because they're, you know,
Big.
between 900 and 1,200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
But through using that, we're able to um, use that sense of alertness to really get a true understanding of what is going on inside someone that they are oftentimes not wanting to necessarily share.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take a type A personality like a firefighter who is accustomed to helping others, they're not oftentimes, uh, they're not oftentimes accustomed to being able to receive that help.
Mm-hmm.
And um, so equine is where the therapist, or sometimes they're referred to as facilitator, they actually watch the horse probably more so than the person,
Mm-hmm.
because the horse is actually mirroring the person.
Mm-hmm.
So um, when I went through equine assisted therapy, they're typically about 6 weeks long. And when I went through, my horse did not like me because we knew about the addiction to alcohol, but we didn't know about post-traumatic stress until my assessment
Hmm.
when I got to rehab.
Which makes total sense. All the things that you see as a firefighter.
Yeah,
Somehow I missed that in your social media. I'm not really sure how I missed something that big, but um, that's one thing that I've always wanted to address on the show. So I'm really glad that you're talking about that right now, because we think of military with post traumatic stress, but what about law enforcement and firefighters, especially? Oh my goodness. Um, so thank you for bringing that really important point up.
yeah, and I get that quite a bit, where people wouldn't normally think of maybe the first responders, because unless we call 911 or just even driving down the road, we don't think about what may be on the other end of that call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. When you said that your horse mirrored people, I didn't realize that. So that kind of made me think of something kind of fun from when I was a kid and we had a horse. His name was Bummer. He would dance. And like you turn on the music and he would dance. But it's funny to me because I would dance every time I was around him. And now I'm like, we thought he danced, but maybe he was dancing because I was dancing. Or just maybe he was really nervous because he's like, she's a really bad dancer.
Horses are so much like people.
Mhm.
They all have their personalities, and so what we do is we match up the the horses a horse that's got the right personality to work with the human in the program, versus a horse that's a little less adapt to cooperating in the program.
Mhm. So, how did this program start? Do you know?
Yeah, a good question. The University of Missouri, and I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it was the University of Missouri Rolla back. Oh gosh, I can't give a year, but it's been a while back. They began. Uh, they began, I believe, the first equine assisted program, and since then, the VA's done research where they found that it helps 87%,
Hmm.
or almost 9 out of 10 people
Mhm.
that go through it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of funny, but did you know that there are service ponies? That's just a side note to our listeners. I was
I
reading I was reading these laws about service animals, and I think it was for one of the airlines, and they mentioned that um, you could have a service dog or a service pony. So, this is
well, that's pretty cool. That's a cool concept.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So now, I mean, like, maybe you can look into that. I don't know.
Yeah.
um, so, so what are you doing right now for yourself to stay sober?
Oh, you know, um, manage. There's staying sober, which for me is pretty easy, and then there's the managing the stress, which is kind of a daily thing. And but staying sober, uh, it I've just found a lot of purpose through leading Veterans for Life and working out and family and all those healthy things that, to be honest, I wish I would have done when I was in the fire service,
Mm-hmm.
because it gets that stress out and it gives you purpose outside of self-medicating.
Mm-hmm. But everything that we go through, there's a reason for it. And we can look back and we can say, like, we wish we could have done things differently. But fact is, I don't think you would be as strong as you are today in leadership if you hadn't gone through those the bad things. Because when I see your posts, you can talk about the really hard times and you know what it's like. And so I think that you can resonate more with our veterans, with our law enforcement, with our firefighters, EMTs, um, because you had to go through those really junky times. um, but is there a website, or how can people find it's called Vets? Can you say it again? Vets first
It's Veterans for Life
for life.
USA, and
Is it
it's
four?
with the number 4.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got it.
All right.
Yeah. And our website is heroesinuniform.org. So if people just remember a hero wearing a uniform,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of an easy way for me to remember it.
Yeah, that is good. We're going to also have your logo on this video that's playing that people can watch. And you're in the show notes, we're going to have all your links. So, can you tell people how they can find you on social media?
Yeah, just go to Brian Paul, and that's me. I think my profile picture right now is my, and this may change, but is my mother and myself in Spider-Man, and that was actually a mannequin in my parents' house that they had in there. They've got like this movie theater. It's really cool. Movie theater.
That is cool.
That's me.
I know too, when you see his page, watch you guys. I mean, he has all sorts of really interactive posts. He posts a lot about, he posts a lot of pictures of himself, which I really like actually, because one of the things that I have a hard time with is posting pictures of myself. I dread it, but I do it because I know it helps people connect. And so every time I see Brian's picture pop up, I really can connect with him because he has this energy about him. You can tell his photos are um, very empowering and inspiring because when he posts, you can tell he is posting thoughtfully, even if it's to make somebody laugh or if it's to connect with somebody or to share his story about something or to encourage them to go lift weights or something. I don't know, because it's just really good. So Brian Paul, thank you. And I I would like to just kind of continue to promote your organization because one of the things that I love about Brian is I help with a couple different nonprofits. And one day I asked if anybody could help me with something. And Brian's like, I can help you. Our organization helps with that. And I thought that was so great because so often you find organizations competing with each other. But Brian was like so willing to help, even if it wasn't his quote unquote organization. He just doesn't care about that. It's always about the veteran or the purpose. And so, Brian, I really do appreciate that more than I can even put into words. So, thank you.
You bet. I want to show the audience something, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
We had the, if you can see it.
Yep.
Um, we had these challenge coins made,
Wow.
and they were made by a volunteer there in Florida,
Mm-hmm. Oh.
and they were with a lot of input from our volunteers here in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And so our motto is stronger together.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there are a lot of nonprofits that naturally want to, they understand stronger. We've got to get more volunteers. We've got to get more funds and all of those things that all of us need to make it. But when we're stronger together, we come to learn that it's actually becomes much easier with truly like-minded people that
Mm-hmm.
are just there, just even if it's not something big like a mutual fundraiser or an event,
Mm-hmm.
just to be there and just love and support each other through that common um, that common understanding that growing a nonprofit is difficult. So we have that natural admiration for each other.
I love that. And I love everything that you're doing. You're just very inspiring. So thank you. And thank you for being on the show. And if you could go ahead and plug your links again, real quick.
Yep, it's Veterans for Life USA. That's with the number 4. And our website is heroesinuniform.org.
Thank you,
And you
Brian.
can reach me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you. And
you
thanks
bet.
for sharing about the equine therapy too, a little bit. We're going to have to go a little bit deeper into that sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. All right. And everybody, thank you for listening, and definitely check out Brian's social media. And we're going to have those links at the end of the show. Thank you.